Picture this. It's 1963, San Diego, California. A 17-year-old high school student named Randy Gardner is standing in his bedroom at 6 a.m. on December 28th staring at his alarm clock. He's made a decision that will change his life forever and terrify scientists around the world. He's going to break the world record for staying awake. The current record is 260 hours, almost 11 days. Randy thinks he can beat it. What he doesn't know is that by day 7 he'll be hallucinating. By day 9 he'll forget who he is. And by day 11 his brain will be doing things that shouldn't be possible. This isn't some internet challenge. This isn't a publicity stunt. This is a real documented scientific experiment that almost killed a teenager and revealed something absolutely terrifying about the human brain. And here's the crazy part. It was all for a high school science fair project. Let me tell you what happened. Randy Gardner wasn't trying to be famous. He wasn't trying to prove anything profound. He was just a regular kid who needed a project for his school's science fair. His friend Bruce McAllister suggested the sleep deprivation idea. They'd read about someone staying awake for 260 hours. Randy said, "I can beat that." Just like that. A casual decision that would turn into a nightmare. But Randy was smart. He knew he couldn't do this alone, so he got 2 of his friends to help, Bruce and another kid named Joe Marciano. Their job was simple: keep Randy awake, no matter what. If he started to doze off, wake him up. If he tried to lie down, get him up. For 11 straight days, someone had to be watching him every single second. They started on December 28, 1963, at 6 a.m. Randy was excited, confident. He thought it would be hard but manageable. After all, everyone stayed up all night before, right? Pull an all-nighter for exams, for a party, whatever. How bad could 11 days be? Day 1 was easy. Randy went to school, hung out with friends, played basketball. He felt fine, a little tired by evening, but nothing serious. He went through the whole first day thinking, this is going to be easier than I thought. Day 2 was harder. By the second night, Randy was starting to feel it. His eyes burned. His body felt heavy. Every time he sat down, his eyelids would start to droop, but his friends were there. They'd shake him, make him walk around, keep him moving. Randy pushed through. Now here's what most people don't understand about sleep deprivation. Your brain doesn't just get tired, it starts to break down. Sleep isn't a luxury, it's when your brain does maintenance. It clears out toxins, it processes memories, it repairs damage. When you don't sleep, all that stuff just accumulates, like never taking out the trash. Eventually your house becomes unlivable. By day 3, Randy was struggling. He couldn't focus on anything. People would talk to him, and he'd forget what they said mid-sentence. His coordination was off. He'd try to pick up a glass and miss. His friends started to worry, but Randy wanted to keep going. He'd made it 3 days. He wasn't going to quit now. Day 4 is when things got weird. Randy started having trouble with his eyes. They wouldn't focus properly. He'd look at something and it would blur, then clear, then blur again. His depth perception was completely gone. He tried to play basketball, something he'd done thousands of times, and he couldn't judge distances anymore. The ball looked closer than it was, then farther away. His brain wasn't processing visual information correctly. But the really disturbing things started happening on day 4 night. Randy began having what scientists call micro-sleeps. These are moments where your brain just shuts off. For 2 or 3 seconds, Randy would be standing there, eyes open, completely unresponsive. His friends would wave their hands in front of his face. Nothing. Then suddenly he'd snap back, confused about what just happened. His brain was trying to force him to sleep, and when he wouldn't let it, it started stealing sleep anyway. Little 2-second naps while he was standing up. This should have been a warning sign, but Randy kept going. Day 5. This is when Randy's personality started to change. He became irritable, angry. He'd snap at his friends for no reason. Then 5 minutes later he wouldn't remember being angry. His short-term memory was failing. You could tell him something, and 30 seconds later he'd have no memory of the conversation. It was like talking to someone whose brain was constantly resetting. The word got out about what Randy was doing, and on day 5, someone very important showed up. Lieutenant Commander John J. Ross, a researcher from the U.S. Navy Medical Neuropsychiatric Research Unit. The Navy was very interested in sleep deprivation. They wanted to know how long sailors could stay alert during combat. Ross started monitoring Randy scientifically, taking notes, running tests. What he documented over the next 6 days would shock the scientific community. Day 6. Randy started hallucinating, not just seeing things, full elaborate hallucinations that he couldn't distinguish from reality. He was convinced he was a famous football player. He'd talk to people who weren't there. At one point he saw a street sign and became convinced it was a person trying to attack him. His friends had to physically restrain him from running away from a signpost. Dr. Ross ran a simple test. He asked Randy to subtract 7 from 100, then keep subtracting 7, 100, 93, 86, 79. Randy got to 65 and stopped. He'd forgotten what he was doing, not because he was distracted. He literally could not remember that he was in the middle of a math problem. His brain's ability to maintain a task had completely broken down. Day 7 was terrifying. Randy's hallucinations became more vivid and more disturbing. He was convinced that Dr. Ross was conspiring against him. He'd see shadows moving in his peripheral vision. He'd hear voices. His friends would talk to him, and he'd respond to things they never said. Reality and imagination had blurred together. His speech started to slur, not like someone who's drunk, more like his mouth couldn't remember how to form words. He'd start a sentence, forget halfway through what he was saying, and just trail off into silence. His eyes had this vacant 1,000-yard stare, like nobody was home. The physical symptoms were getting scary too. Randy's hands trembled constantly. His blood pressure was elevated. His body temperature fluctuated wildly. He'd be sweating 1 minute, shivering the next. His immune system was starting to fail. He developed a cold. Small cuts on his hands weren't healing properly. His body was literally falling apart. Day 8, Randy could barely walk in a straight line. His motor control was gone. He'd try to pick up a pencil and his hand would shake so badly he'd knock it off the table. Dr. Ross ran more tests. Randy's reaction time was slower than someone legally drunk. His decision-making was impaired. In one test, Dr. Ross showed Randy a series of images and asked him to identify them. Randy looked at a picture of a cat and said it was a dog, not because he was confused. His brain genuinely couldn't process what his eyes were seeing. But here's the really disturbing part. Randy wasn't constantly hallucinating. There were moments, brief moments, where he'd snap back to normal. He'd have complete clarity. He'd realize how bad things had gotten. Then minutes later, he'd slip back into confusion. It was like watching someone drown, come up for air, then sink again, over and over. Day 9. Randy started experiencing something called delusions of parasitosis. He was convinced that bugs were crawling under his skin. He'd scratch at his arms until they bled, trying to get the bugs out. There were no bugs. His brain was inventing sensations, creating a reality that didn't exist. His memory was completely gone now. Dr. Ross would tell him something, and Randy would forget it before Dr. Ross finished the sentence. It wasn't that Randy wasn't paying attention. His brain literally could not form new memories anymore. The part of his brain responsible for memory consolidation had shut down. Dr. Ross was seriously considering stopping the experiment. This had gone beyond a science fair project. Randy was suffering. His brain was damaged, maybe permanently, but Randy, in his rare moments of clarity, insisted on continuing. He'd made it 9 days. The record was within reach. Day 10. Randy was barely recognizable as the kid who'd started this experiment. His face was pale. His eyes were sunken. He moved like a zombie, slow and uncoordinated. He couldn't complete simple tasks. Dr. Ross asked him to spell world backwards. Randy couldn't do it. Not because he didn't know how to spell. His brain couldn't hold the letters in his mind long enough to reverse them. The hallucinations were constant now. Randy lived in a world that was half real, half imagined. He'd have conversations with people who weren't there. He'd respond to questions nobody asked. His friends had to guide him everywhere because he'd forget where he was going mid-walk. And then something truly bizarre happened. Randy's brain started doing something called waking dreams. He'd be standing there, eyes open, and he'd start acting out a dream. He'd reach for objects that didn't exist. He'd speak to imaginary people. His brain had started dreaming while he was awake, overlaying dream imagery onto the real world. Dr. Ross had never seen anything like it. Day 11, January 8, 1964, 2 a.m. Randy had been awake for 264 hours, 11 days straight. He'd beaten the record, but he didn't care anymore. He didn't really understand what was happening. When they told him he'd broken the record, he just stared blankly. No emotion, no reaction. The part of his brain that processes achievement and emotion had shut down. Dr. Ross decided they'd done enough, more than enough. He told Randy he could sleep. And here's what happened next, something that shocked everyone involved. Randy couldn't fall asleep. His brain had been awake for so long that it had forgotten how to sleep. They put him in bed, turned off the lights. Randy lay there, eyes closed, but he wasn't sleeping. His brain was stuck in awake mode. After an hour of lying there, he finally drifted off. But it wasn't normal sleep. His brain activity was chaotic. REM sleep started immediately, which never happens. His body was desperately trying to catch up on all the sleep it had missed. Randy slept for 14 hours straight. When he woke up, he seemed okay, groggy but okay. Dr. Ross ran tests. Randy's cognitive function was returning. His memory was working again. His hallucinations were gone. It seemed like maybe, somehow Randy had escaped permanent damage. But had he? Here's where the story gets controversial. Dr. Ross published the results of Randy's experiment. The scientific community was fascinated and horrified. What Randy had gone through revealed something crucial about the human brain. We need sleep more than we need food. You can survive weeks without eating. You can't survive weeks without sleeping. Your brain will literally break down. But there were questions. Lots of questions. Did Randy suffer permanent brain damage? Dr. Ross said no. Randy seemed fine after he recovered. But other scientists weren't so sure. How do you measure subtle cognitive damage? How do you know if someone's memory or decision-making has been permanently impaired? Randy himself insisted he was fine. He went back to school, graduated, lived a normal life. But years later in interviews, Randy admitted something disturbing. He said that after the experiment, he had chronic insomnia. He'd lie in bed, wanting to sleep, unable to sleep. The same brain that he'd forced awake for 11 days had somehow been rewired. Sleep didn't come naturally anymore. He also said he had trouble with memory. Not severe problems, but enough to notice. He'd forget appointments, lose track of conversations, small things, but persistent things. Things that made him wonder if maybe, just maybe, those 11 days had done more damage than anyone realized. The scientific community learned crucial lessons from Randy's experiment. They learned that sleep deprivation doesn't just make you tired, it makes you insane, literally insane. After about 5 days without sleep, your brain starts experiencing symptoms identical to schizophrenia, hallucinations, delusions, paranoia, loss of self. They also learned that the brain will force sleep on you whether you want it or not. Those micro-sleeps Randy experienced, they're your brain's emergency shutdown. When you deprive it long enough, it starts taking sleep in tiny increments, even while you're supposedly awake. You become dangerous to yourself and others. People who've gone without sleep for long periods, have driven cars and have no memory of it. They've had entire conversations they don't remember. After Randy's experiment, the Guinness Book of World Records stopped recognizing sleep deprivation records. They decided it was too dangerous, too harmful. They didn't want to encourage people to destroy their brains for 15 minutes of fame. But the damage was done. Randy's experiment had shown the world what happens when you push the human brain past its limits, and people were both fascinated and terrified. Here's what scientists now understand about sleep deprivation, thanks in part to what Randy went through. After 24 hours without sleep, your cognitive function is equivalent to being legally drunk. Your reaction time slows. Your judgment is impaired. You shouldn't be driving or operating machinery. After 48 hours, your body starts shutting down non-essential functions. Your immune system weakens. You start experiencing microsleeps, those brief moments where your brain just turns off. After 72 hours, 3 days, you start hallucinating. Your brain can't distinguish between real sensory input and imagined input. You see things, hear things. Reality becomes optional. After 5 days, your personality changes. You become paranoid, irritable, emotionally unstable. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that makes you, starts to malfunction. After 7 days, you're experiencing symptoms of psychosis. You're not just tired, you're mentally ill. Temporarily, hopefully, but genuinely mentally ill. After 10 days, like Randy, you're barely human. Your brain is in survival mode. Basic functions are breaking down. Memory doesn't work. Motor control is gone. You're alive, but just barely. Randy made it 11 days. Scientists believe that if he'd continued, he might have died, not from exhaustion, but from his brain literally failing. There's a rare genetic disorder called fatal familial insomnia, where people progressively lose the ability to sleep. They go through the same stages Randy did: confusion, hallucinations, psychosis, and then they die. Their brains just stop working. Randy was lucky. He got to sleep eventually. But what he went through in those 11 days showed us something terrifying. Sleep isn't optional. It's not a luxury. It's not something you can trade for productivity or entertainment. Sleep is as essential as breathing. And when you don't get it, your brain will make you pay. Think about that the next time you pull an all-nighter. Randy went 11 days and he nearly lost his mind. You go one night without sleep, and you're already impaired. Your brain is already struggling. We live in a culture that glorifies sleep deprivation, burning the midnight oil, hustling, grinding. But Randy's story is a warning. Your brain will only take so much. Today, Randy Gardner is in his 70s. He rarely gives interviews. He said that he regrets the experiment, not because of what it did to him, though that's part of it, but because of what it inspired. After his experiment became famous, other people tried to break his record. Some succeeded, some suffered permanent damage. At least one person died attempting a similar feat. Randy didn't mean for that to happen. He was just a kid who wanted a good science fair project, but what he discovered was too important, too dangerous, to ignore. He showed us the edge of human endurance, and he showed us what happens when you fall off that edge. So here's the real lesson of Randy Gardner's story. Your brain is powerful, but it's fragile. It needs maintenance. It needs rest. It needs sleep. Push it too hard, and it will break. Maybe temporarily, maybe permanently, but it will break. Randy learned that the hard way. He spent 11 days proving that humans can stay awake longer than anyone thought possible. But in doing so, he also proved that maybe we shouldn't. Some limits exist for a reason. Some boundaries are there to protect us from ourselves. The next time you're tempted to skip sleep, to work just a few more hours, to binge one more episode, to scroll through your phone instead of closing your eyes, remember Randy Gardner. Remember the teenager who didn't sleep for 11 days and almost lost his mind. Remember that sleep isn't weakness. Sleep is survival. Because Randy's experiment taught us one undeniable truth. You can fight a lot of things in life and win, but you can't fight sleep. Eventually, sleep always wins. The only question is whether you let it win peacefully, or whether you force your brain to go to war with itself. Randy chose war, and he barely survived.